started, I have a kind of a serious question. Do you think these pants are blue or green? If you think blue, raise your hand. If you think green, raise your hand. Eric?
Bindi told me.
We always trust the canines, don't we? I've had these pants for 2 years, and I thought they were green. No, let me correct myself. I still think they're green. But on St. Patrick's Day, people said to me, "Why aren't you wearing green?" I was like, "I am." They're like, "No, you're not." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, look. Green." They're like, "No." I'm like, "Well, we need more opinions because 2 is not enough." Comes to find out, most people think these pants are blue. I'm not getting into wrong or right. We're going to talk about perspectives and nuance this morning. But what I discovered was, what was reaffirmed to me was that I see things differently than most people. Now, this is the first time in 50-some years that I realized it affected color. Most of the time throughout my life, I just didn't fit in. As you can tell from my accent, and if you don't know me, if we haven't met before, I'm from down south, from North Carolina. I've lived abroad. I lived in England. I lived in the Middle East for several years working with refugees. And no matter where I'm at, you can always tell where I'm from. My accent is unshakable. Although in my 30s, I did lose it for a bit, and then it just suddenly sort of came back. I think I stopped fighting it. But do you ever find yourselves in that state or that space where you just don't see things like everybody else does? There might be events, there might be situations, there might be an individual, and everybody else is saying this. And you're like, what are they talking about? Who are they talking about? Because it's not really my experience. That often comes from some unhealed wounds that we might still be carrying. If you don't know me, we haven't met, and as Ezekiel said, I work with people transitioning. I'm a spiritual counselor, I'm a channel, and I have private practice. But then I also work with hospice patients and their loved ones, helping people prepare to separate from the body. I don't really say death because there's not really such a thing. We continue going, we continue existing. And often this different perspective that we might have has sometimes come from wounds that we've had in the past that we think we've healed, but yet we've not. Now, sometimes, like my pants, everybody else is just wrong. But sometimes it is us. And if you are married or in a serious relationship, you know that how you think you project yourself in your persona is different than what those around you might see. And sometimes they just tell us. I've been asked to wrap up this month of healing and renewal. And you know, most spiritualities, most ancient spiritualities have this concept of renewal or rebirth or regrowth. There's emerging from the womb. There's coming out of the sepulcher. There's resurrecting from the tomb. It's through all spiritualities. And one of the most ancient goes back to ancient Egypt, even before it was Egypt. It's called Chem or Kemet. And you look at Osiris and Isis, who were both siblings and spouses. And Osiris' brother Set killed him. And then Isis, with her regenerative and restorative and resurrecting energy, brought him back to life. And they had a son, and his name is Horus, or Horus the Younger, to be more specific. And in this ancient Kemet spirituality, we learn very early on about this need of change, of renewal, and regrowth. It's always wonderful to follow a great message from the week before. And last week, Matthew Lawton, he stood up and he shared with us very vulnerably his path of spiritual growth and into healing, the healer's journey. And if you were here, I'm going to get my water bottle. If you were here and at the end of his message, he invited everybody to stand up. And we made declarations about our desire for healing. And you might have been here. You might have done that. Because we're all carrying wounds. Some we've processed, and we've healed, and we work through. And sometimes we've done that, and then we get blindsided and think, damn, I thought I already dealt with that shit. And here it is again. Or sometimes it just comes in layers. And we can stand up and we can make declarations and we can have the most sincere intentions and we can leave here highly elevated. Only 3 days later to be back in the same place. Because we as humans don't like change. Even when we know we need it and we're not content with the current situation. I was listening to an interview from this practitioner who worked with victims of domestic violence. And she was being asked why people don't leave situations when they might even have means. Family or friends who will take them in, or the economic means. Now granted, sometimes that is not the case. And anything I say today is not intended to diminish anyone who's not able to leave. But we often find ourselves in challenging situations because sometimes, as the old saying goes, the devil we know is better than the one we don't. We don't like change. If you study movies and screenplays and writings, there's a format that takes place often in the hero's journey. And most good movies are really the hero's journey. And this is called the inciting incident. Are any of you guys familiar with that term? Eric again raises his hand. The inciting incident is the event that occurs in a movie or in a story where something happens and there's no going back. Everything changes. From this point on, everything is different. And one of the best examples of that is the 1977 Star Wars. I should just stop now. The 1977 Star Wars movie, often called A New Hope now, and I've given up on the numberings in the sequence. I've just given up. Thank you. But it might change because it used to be one, so don't hold on to that too tightly. In that, Luke has found, the droids, they've got the droids, R2-D2 wanders off, they end up with Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan, they manage to unlock R2-D2's files, he portrays his hologram and Princess Leia's message. And Obi-Wan looks at Luke and is like, we got to go do something about this. You need to go with me. He's like, I'm in enough trouble as it is. If I don't get home, they're going to kill me. The crops are coming in, and he gives all this excuse. So Obi-Wan takes him back. And they get back to the aunt and uncle's homestead. They get there, and they find out that the aunt and uncle has been killed by Imperial troops who were looking for the droids. You remember this? It's vivid. It's the inciting incident. After that moment for Luke, he could never be the same. Everything changed. And sometimes, for you and I, it requires an inciting incident, that event that prompts and produces change. There's no going back. There's no turning around. This has happened. Nothing will be the same. Matthew vulnerably shared about this last week. He talked about the loss of a business partner who took the business, Matthew's loss of funds, and then his response to that, his ex-wife's departure. After that, nothing was the same. Now, sometimes it might be a cumulative effect. It might not be one event. It might be that we're finding ourselves in a situation, a job, a relationship, or whatever. And finally, that proverbial straw that breaks a camel's back happens. And we're like, I can't take this anymore. I can't do this anymore. People who in recovery often talk about hitting the bottom. And that bottom is different for everybody. But often for us to really engage in efforts that produce somewhat lasting change, there usually has to be an event, whether it's immediate or cumulative. And then we usually have to do something about it. When Matthew spoke of the events that happened, he then talked about going to a business expo. And he talked about going to a booth and being drawn to this particular healer and practitioner. He was like, I don't even know what the hell she was talking about, but I signed up for 6 classes. He didn't know the language, he didn't know the lingo, but he felt the difference. And then he said after he took the classes, he continued in pursuing different modalities, learning about different healings. When his wife left, he just didn't make a declaration, I won't change. Oh yes, that's a very important part of it. But he actually put in the work to do something about it. And in that question on the screen, are you ready? It's not, are you ready for healing? I know you are. But are you ready to put in the work to receive it, to facilitate it, to make it happen? Because it just usually doesn't happen on its own. And often it's those like down on the floor, on your face, tears, snot coming out, moments of something that has to change. There's no need for me to ask a show of hands if you know what I'm talking about, because we've all experienced it. It's just, what do we do when it occurs? Will we be willing to spin a cocoon around us, allow that deconstruction, that renewal, that rebirth, and resurrection to continue to bring a new us? One of the members of our community, Genesis Aleda, she writes in her poem, the world may seem upside down from your view, but soon you'll bid it adieu. Your transformation will leave you breathless and yet anew. But often when we're going into the cocoon, we don't know what's going to happen when we come out. Yes, that was an affirmation. People around you need you to engage in this healing. Not just for you, but for them all around us. Earlier, Ezekiel was talking about our magnetic field, that electromagnetic field our heart produces. And people need us in a loving state, producing that energy of love. That comes from being healing, the process of healing, and of working towards wholeness. We've all been in a room, we've walked in a room and we're like, oh shit, what's going on? Everybody knows what's happened but me. Because you can feel the tension. That's what Ezekiel was talking about. That energetic field that we produce, often called a toroidal field. Your loved ones need you to heal. Your community needs you to heal. This planet needs you to heal. Any decent healer or practitioner that you work with or consult has gone through this, because we really have to be beaten down and broken open to remove that persona, the ego, and the false self before the true self will emerge. And sometimes it starts with a little cosmic tap or feather, push or shove, or then the two before that Matthew talked about last week. For me, a couple years ago, it was one of them, one of those few that seems to have happened in my life, was a particular diagnosis I received. And I went in the spirit and connected to the true self and channeling. I could hear this is just to get your attention, to get you back on track. So if you need to hear from one who's been there, I promise you, if you put in the work, it's worth it. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be messy. And it's going to go up and down. If you're graphing it, it's going to go like this, but you'll eventually have an upward trajectory. And it's when you hit those valleys, you don't give up. Yeah, you can be angry, you can cuss, you can, all that you need to do. But don't give up. Brianna Wiest wrote a poem. And it's called Your New Life. And she writes and says, your new life is going to cost you. It's going to cost you your old one. It's going to cost you your comfort zone and any sense of direction. It's going to cost you relationships and friends. It's going to cost you being liked and being understood. But it doesn't matter, because the people who are meant for you are going to meet you on the other side. You're going to build a new comfort zone around things that actually move you forward and give you life. Instead of being liked, you'll be loved. Instead of being understood, you'll be seen. All you're going to lose was what built was for a person you no longer are. Let it go. Let it go.